This
Hello,
meeting is
everyone.
being
I'm
recorded.
Joe Velarde. I'm the statewide coordinator for health and physical education. So we're sending out a series of videos about the healthy and balanced living curriculum framework. So we shared that link out to you in the past, shared out the document to you in the past. And so what you're going to get from us now is a series of videos giving an overview of the document. So the Healthy Balanced Living Curriculum Framework is based on the national standards for health and physical education. It's supposed to guide health and PE curriculum development at your school and in your district. But it is much more than that, and there's a lot more in there. So you're going to get the series of videos from us sort of explaining parts as we go through. Today I have Bonnie Edmondson, who is a professor and graduate coordinator of the School of Health Ed program at Southern Connecticut State University. That is a very brief introduction to someone who's had a long and distinguished career. Tracy Stefano is the health and PE supervisor in East Hartford Public Schools. She's the president of CAFED and an adjunct professor at Southern, and she is the CAFE secretary. But for our purposes today, besides their both very distinguished career, and that was a very brief introduction, for our purpose today, both these folks were part of a group of people who authored the Healthy Balanced Living Curriculum Framework, put it all together for our use in Connecticut and as a guidance for health and physical education in the state of Connecticut. So thank you both for joining us. Can't tell you how much we appreciate you and all your work and your great professionalism and your service to our profession in Connecticut. So thank you for doing this with us today.
Thanks so much, Joe. What a pleasure it is to be here with you this afternoon and with my dear colleague, Tracy Stefano. As Joe said, I'm Bonnie Edmondson, and I'm an associate professor of school health education at Southern Connecticut State University. And prior to being here at Southern, I had the honor of working at the State Department of Education for over 28 years. As the health education consultant. So it brings me great pleasure to be a part of the development of this document and knowing the potential ramifications, very positive ones across the state and the country with rolling this particular document out. So this webinar segment features an introduction to the newly released Healthy and Balanced Living Curriculum Framework. And I will be providing an overview and the discussion about the development, the purpose, and we'll showcase key sections specific to the health education standards. An overview of the skills-based portion of health education is going to be described as well within the framework, and it'll be provided by Tracy Stefano, a coordinator of health education and physical education at East Hartford Public Schools. Academic standards provide a common set of expectations for what students should know and be able to do by specific grade levels for each subject area. Standards provide guidance to local school districts to ensure that students acquire the skills and knowledge they need to achieve personal and academic success. Of Education's Healthy and Balanced Living Framework standards provide the required elements of instruction and provides districts with a best practice approach for implementing a planned, ongoing, and systematic pre-K through 12 curriculum that addresses the physical, mental, social, and emotional dimensions of health. An effective curriculum promotes the development of protective factors, supports healthy outcomes, and enables students to establish and practice health-enhancing behaviors and become productive, health-literate citizens. The framework includes both health education and physical education standards, and while certainly connected, these are distinctly separate content areas and therefore have their own standards as reflected in this document and based on their respective national standards. Our area of focus for this webinar is to introduce the health education standards. There were several driving forces converging at the same time that influenced the recent revision of these standards. The first one being additional state mandates that were passed, including instruction in food allergies, and also an increase in state high school graduation requirements to include a 1 credit requirement in health education for the very first time. It was essential that evidence-based practices were being implemented, and the framework had not been updated since 2006, and therefore was clearly outdated. There's also a decrease in the number of health education coordinators in school districts, which made it even more vital to provide policy guidance to support local level implementation of evidence-based practice. And finally, increased attention to social emotional learning competencies. Of course, we're living that moment right now. Therefore, we created a crosswalk and articulated connections between the SEL competencies and the health education standards. The State Department had the foresight to engage multiple stakeholders with content area expertise to co-lead the revision of the Healthy and Balanced Living curriculum framework. That included the health standards. These experts included state organizations and educational institutions, including CAFE, CAFED, CAS, and institutes of higher education that engaged national, state, and local leaders who are experts in the field, including school administrators, teachers, graduate students, and undergraduate students, and of course, our end users, high school students. This process empowered the professionals in the field purposefully and deliberately develop a document that is grounded in research, reflects best practices, and supports the ultimate goal of helping students adopt and maintain healthy behaviors and realize health and education outcomes. Throughout the development, it was determined that it was critical for the document to be driven by evidence-based practices and to define expectations for district implementation, given that many districts do not have curriculum leadership in health education. It was agreed that the ultimate outcome is for students to adopt and maintain a lifetime of healthy behaviors. Through this process, several such as goals, data points, and resources supported the development of this document, as is reflected in this slide. For example, in Connecticut, the high school graduation requirements for health education increased to 1.0 credits, as previously described. In addition, there are many state mandates regarding functional health knowledge. There's also been an increased understanding and focused on skills-based health education, and those skills align significantly with the SEL learning competencies, as Tracy will talk about in a few minutes. In addition, local data has been informing us about anxiety levels, substance use, and other related challenges that face our youth. And finally, the New England Association of Schools and Colleges required that each district develops a portrait of a graduate that includes 21st century skills, including dispositions for future successes such as collaboration, communication, and problem solving. Additionally, one of the NEASC components is having systems in place to support student learning and well-being. There's no doubt that health education is the tier 1 intervention for social and emotional learning and development. So throughout our presentation this afternoon, we're going to be discussing key sections of the Healthy and Balanced Living curriculum framework. specifically to the health education standards. Now, within the document, there are several sections that I just want to highlight for you. There's a great how to use section that explains what you can find and how you can use that particular piece of the document. There's a crosswalk between SEL competencies and the 8 national health education standards. Our core concepts are articulated in Standard 1, the 9 health education content areas, and the 7 skill standards and respective performance indicators of each. In addition, the appendices are ripe with resources. And in a moment, I'm going to highlight a couple of these. But in our appendices, there is a section that has the exact wording for our health education laws, are also known as state standards. Appendix B provides us with a health education program evaluation review check sheet, if you will, and that is to assess compliance with state law. Appendix C addresses recommended instructional time for health and safety, alcohol, tobacco, nicotine, and other drugs, HIV/AIDS, and sexual health education by grade level. And that is an area that we used to get so many calls with and have questions fielded from our districts about how much time do we need to allot in health education. So I will show you what that looks like in a moment. And finally, the alignment of SEL competencies with health education and physical education standards. So briefly, Appendix B. Now, when you delve into the document, this is a several page appendix, a specific document. I'm just showing you the first page of this evaluation review checklist, if you will. Again, it's also known as a compliance review checklist and can help you advocate for your programs. We've listed all of the state statutes that, and they are an extensive list, that address what's required to be taught in health education. So I would recommend that you use this with your school health committee or your wellness committee or our WISC, our whole children, whole school, whole child committees, and use this step by step and going through what are we actually teaching and what are we doing well and what do we need to do better to ensure that we're in compliance. So Appendix B will lead you through that process. Appendix C, as previously noted, are recommended number of instructional hours. And this is based on our national standards recommendation and also what we know research supports in making sure that there's enough time for learning and supporting the adoption and maintenance of healthy behaviors. We know that a one-shot deal has no long-term effect on health behaviors with students. Health education should be treated like any other content area. Therefore, with that said, the recommendation is a total of 40 hours per academic year in pre-K through 2, and grades 3 through 12, a minimum of 80 hours per academic year. And within those 40 and 80 hours, we have the other 3 areas broken up. So the total recommendation for all of health education areas, including these 3 below areas, are reflected in the 40 and 80 hours. Okay, so implications for practice. You know, why is this document important? Well, you know, it on the local school district level, well, it certainly provides a roadmap for best practice and quality programming. It informs choices made about the content and skills taught at each grade level and should reflect district and students' needs, as well as incorporating all of the state mandates that are required to be taught. It also allows to choose skills that are most appropriately aligned to content supporting the development of health literate students. And finally, on the local level, the document should be used as a foundation for creative and imaginative teaching. At the pre-service level, it certainly influences future research to inform evidence-based practice. The majority of our research in health education happens at the higher education level. And therefore, looking at the document driving and perhaps posing questions to us that we can further research. It also, it's important that we align course content with standards and competencies to perform, to inform practice and application. And it also provides an opportunity to practice implementation in an authentic setting with our pre-service students. Having our pre-service and graduate students familiar with our state standards and best practice documents readies them for day one when they step into the classroom. They're familiar with SEL, they're familiar with skills-based, and understand what is happening in our local school district. So the Healthy and Balanced Living Curriculum Framework is a dynamic document, and it sets up and provides a clear direction, expectations, and drives relevant, cohesive practice in order for our students to adopt and maintain a lifetime of healthy behaviors. So now I'd like to turn it over to Tracy Stefano, who's going to do a deep dive for us in skills-based health education. Tracy?
Thank you, Bonnie. And thank you, Joe, for setting this up to really spread the word and get our document that we spent so much time, effort, blood, and tears creating for our professionals in the field. So my section is really looking at the meat and the potatoes of what it is that you're going to be using to develop your programming and curricula as you move forward. So can you, is this on me? Okay, so it's a skills-based approach. So one of the things that we really were mindful of as we were developing this framework was the ease in which you could use it. And it really needed to be very, for me, it's a document that you definitely should be able to look at and be able to use. And so I think in the way of the layout, I think accomplished that. So as you can see, standard one has always been about the core content. And that is, what is the key information? What is that functional knowledge that students need to know to develop their health literacy? And so what we did is we really aligned our standards finally to the national standards. So they are numbered now the same way as our national standards. We did do a couple of different things in our core content areas, our strands, if you will. We still looked at HECAT, which is part of the CDC's measurement of their student outcomes along with the national standards. But we broke down our core content strands just a little bit differently. We added healthy relationships in there, and we combined healthy eating and physical activity, and then we came up with optimal wellness and disease prevention. It just felt that we could really separate out some of those things a little bit more clear in the way that we did. So we have 9 core content strands, if you will. That is the functional knowledge that will drive the skills-based health education and those standards. So if you can just go to the next slide. So standards 2 through 8 are the health skills. These are the skills that your units will definitely become. So analyzing influences, accessing information, interpersonal communication, decision-making, goal setting, self-management, advocacy. Those are all units of instruction that will use the core content to practice for students to practice the skills and develop their health skills. The thing that I think we need to kind of understand as you're looking at the document is actually how to read the standards. So the standard on the left, those are all the 1 through 8, the core content, analyzing influences. Those are how they're numbered in our document. And then the abbreviations are the same as what you will see with the national standards. We felt that it was really important because a lot of our work is definitely aligned with the national standards. We just updated really the language in the student outcomes and indicators. The second part of this is where, again, the health content, which is your standard 1, is on this left-hand side. How we abbreviated it is in that second column. That's important to note. So when you actually go into the document and you're looking at alcohol, nicotine, and other drugs, for instance, you will see ANOD as the first 4, obviously the initials. That middle number is the indicator number. It's numbered in order. So if you can see here in that red in the middle, it's ANOD 1. That first, it means that's standard 1. The middle number means that's the indicator, and they're numbered in order. So there could be 9, there could be 10, but those are how you would find it. And then the last number is, if you go over to the right under grade level, that's the grade level sequence. So ours are grade level sequence of K to 2, 3 to 5, 6 to 8, and 9 to 12. So if you're going into the document, I know that this shows ANOD. That means you're looking at that content for alcohol, nicotine, and other drugs. Again, that first number is the standard number itself. The second would be the indicator or the student outcome, and the third is the grade level. If you were looking at this and it was like analyzing influences, you would use the analyzing influences abbreviation. The standard, I believe, is 2, and so forth. And so this is included in the document as well, I believe, just so you can really gain an understanding of what this looks like. The other thing that I will say that we also, instead of like doing all of the indicators for grade levels like K2, 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, 12, what we did is we put K through 12 on one sheet for each content area. We felt that it was better to be able to sit as you were planning out your scope and sequences to really see how it scaffolds and it builds from year to year. So again, it really came back to creating a document that we felt was usable and really teacher friendly. And I think we've accomplished that, at least in my mind anyway, but I think it really is. So really, there's a lot of like buzz around what is skills-based health. That is something that is has shifted nationally in how we develop programming and facilitate and implement instruction. And this definition for skills-based health ed comes from Holly Alperin and Sari Bennis, who have written books on this and has actually worked with our state health cadre in training us to be able to help facilitate and train others in the state of Connecticut. But really, skills-based health ed is a planned, sequential, comprehensive, really learning experiences. It's really where the standards become the unit. It's a shift. It is a mind shift in how you're planning and developing instruction, because the units become, like I said, the skill, and then the content is the vehicle in which we use for kids to practice and demonstrate the skills. So why is this shift crucial? Really, the biggest point in this, and is to really develop health literacy. We know that facts and information do not change behavior. Development of skills do. And so, kids don't want to sit and just listen to facts and the stats and the cause and effect. They need to they need to be provided opportunities to practice skills, to engage in authentic learning tasks and performance tasks, to show how they can apply these skills. And so this is really the shift. And if you are delivering a skills-based health education model, that is in direct alignment to SEL, because the SEL standards and our health education standards are really, if you look at them, they're one and the same. They're decision making, they're self-management, they're communication. And so if we are providing a skills-based health approach in delivering our content and our curriculum, we are going to be providing tier 1 instruction in SEL. That is how really tight our alignment is. And so we talk about, so what is the components of skills-based health ed? It's where really the skills are the focus. You are taking the standards 2 through 8 from the Healthy and Balanced Living Curriculum Framework. You're working off of that. That is the foundation and the focus of units of the curriculum. It's skills that are driving in the foundation, driving your units, not the content. The content, again, is the vehicle. It's the context for teaching skills. That's one area. Functional information, you really need health information to be able to practice the skills. So that is where the standard ones and the indicators in the document you look at, and that's where you will determine what what facts and information and core content you should be delivering. It's really the need to know and what information that will help them apply the skills and learn the skills. And so it's used as the context for skill development. And that is one of the areas that we sometimes struggle with is, we want to provide our kids with so much information. Well, they have that at their fingertips. What they need to learn to do is really kind of decipher what's important. What is the must need to know to be able to practice and demonstrate the skill? And then the participatory methods, we all under Connecticut, under our CCT and how we're, observed and assessed is this, it fits right under the participatory methods because we have shifted to student-centered student-centered strategies to deliver instruction. And really in this model, the teacher becomes more of the facilitator to guide the students through the use of discussions, role plays, debates. So it's more authentic learning tasks, performance tasks, instead of just worksheets of information and memorization of stats that are forever changing. And so with all of this, this is such a very, can't even do a big deep dive, but this is really kind of an overview of what that is. But where do you begin? Well, my suggestion is really take that new framework and start to really read through it. It gives you how to use the document. It will, if you look through it and you look at each content strand, it gives you the information that you need to plan, to deliver, or to develop rather your curriculums and programs. From there, the backwards design approach, I think many districts use the universal backwards design to create your curriculums. You really have to look at your student and community needs. What's great about this document, it's not really prescriptive. So you can take, if your community is struggling with vaping or your teen pregnancy is a huge issue, those are things that you can embed in your skills. And another district might be something different. So you really have to look at what the needs of your student population is, as well as your community. What is it that you want your students to get out of your program by the time that they graduate? or the time that they finish second grade or fifth grade. Those are things that you really have to take into account, and it really is outlined in the document. And then you're creating your benchmarks, assessments, your learning targets. The biggest thing is, I think, when you really do start to sit down and you look at it, K through 12, is really finding what skill that you want to teach and what information or content strand you want to put together to start to develop and map out your scope and sequence. And then you can start planning your specific units. The other thing that I'll say too is, you know, when you're beginning this, it's networking, it's buying the books, the plug I'll put for that, the essentials of teaching skills-based health ed and lesson planning for skills-based health ed. Those are things that will help you in this process, reaching out to people who are already kind of in the midst of this shift. We are in our district. I know that we also have our health cadre at the state that we're going to be doing some work in June around how to develop your skills-based health ed curriculum. But really it is about networking, sharing, reaching out if you do need support with this, because we're all in it together. And it really is something that's exciting. And I can tell you the shift to this type of delivery model, it does increase student engagement because they're applying, they're practicing, they're developing these skills. So that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you both for your presentation, but more than that, thank you for all this work in pulling this together. I know it was years of work, you and your co-collaborators on creating this document and making it available and getting it passed through the State Board of Education and getting it online at the state website. So all that work that I know took several years of diligence and professionalism. So thank you for this time, but thank you for all of that in the past. And I appreciate you doing this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe, and thanks for your leadership in pulling this together. This is now the fun part comes, the rollout.